And you see, we've been given such facilities, infrastructure, like free primary education. So expect this platform should grow a young person into somebody respectable in the society, in that if you follow through this structure and you've recategorized the young people, when you talk of even the appointment into different positions in government.
In fact, I was even going to get there, Marvin, because there has also been a serious and major concern when it comes to appointments in public office. You see, it's the same cycle, day in, day out, year in, year out, after every political season. You see the same politicians being recycled. You see people that were politicians when you're in primary, when you're in secondary, when you're in your university level. It's the same politicians being recycled year in, year out when it comes to appointment. Yet you're talking about giving young people the opportunity of probably, you know, leadership.
You know, I normally look at it in this manner. Yes, we've had, you know, these politicians that we normally say they are being recycled by the authority that be. We look at them and say we've been left out. But in my interaction with the politics in our country, you know, young people, they don't ask for these positions because they're young. They ask for these positions because they qualify for some of these positions. But you look at...
What do you mean by that, Marvin? But that young people don't ask for these positions because they're young? They don't ask for this position because...
Because they're qualified.
They're qualified.
Yes. You see, professionally, I'm an economist and I'm an accountant. I have quite a number of background.
Okay.
You see, I'll ask for this position, not because I'm a young person, but because I qualify for that position.
Yeah.
But now the question that begs is, how have I positioned myself? Does even the appointing authority know that there is a young person looking for this position? But
so are you trying to say, Marvin, are you trying to say that these recycled politicians in some of these positions, they position themselves very well?
It's a double coin in such a way that they have positioned themselves. I look at it as if they have positioned themselves in such a way that...
In fact, positioning is sort of trying to like flower it. They've lobbied.
You may call it lobbying.
because it's, you know, let me just cut you short, Marvin.
Yes.
Let's look at a meeting that was held in Nairobi, and it was the topic on social media, you know, both Twitter and Facebook.
Yes.
And it was a meeting that was ministers, youth agenda affairs ministers. It was the East African youth offender ministers. And I remember CAS, Rachel Shebesh, was the one who was opening that event. It was being held in Nairobi. And the photo that was there, and you saw that?
Yeah, I saw.
And the photo that was there, you're thinking, this are the ministers who handle youth affairs in East Africa? And some of them are old. Allow me to use that word. The people who are in their 60s, their 50s. And it begged the question, are these people the youth? They're not, of course, they've even passed the, they've passed the bracket. But so it begs the question, is it that because you're saying that we don't position ourselves very well, is it positioning or lobbying?
Let me give you an example. Currently, the last time I checked, we have so many youth organizations in the country.
Yeah.
But they are not coordinated in an umbrella body. Let's say we used to have National Youth Council. Let's say you may compare that scenario like the labor laws, they have their COTU. You see, they have, in as much as you have different organization within, but you have an umbrella body that you may be able to lobby your issues and mainstream them to any appointing authority.
Yeah.
But currently, there are so many youth organizations. Besides that, when you even talk of political parties, we have quite so many, 70-something political parties. In that manner, you see, even democracy in our country, it is reduced to sorry to say this, but to some level of mediocrity, because, you know, at times when something is in plenty, it tends to be abused in a manner that, yes, young people have youth organizations that there are quite a number of youth organizations that are doing a good deal, a good, they have provided a good platform for the young people. They have organized the young people, but we need to organize ourselves further. We need to even lobby, we need to position ourselves. I'll give you an example. When I joined politics, it was quite some time back, just after my undergraduate. I had done a few work somewhere, but then I decided, let me now go, you know, coming from my economics background, we always try to equate the economy with politics. Yeah. So I say, let me do politics. But I was not in the limelight. I was doing mostly the administration in a political party. Looking at that space, I tend to see a scenario where we had very few young people. I tried to even reach out to my colleagues and my comrades and classmates. They're asking me, now why do you decide to join politics at this early age? Now, this space having been reduced to a very small key players within, then the same very old people that you say they are eating their pension, but yet they are the ones driving the youth agenda, to some extent, they'll not do it to the fullest. They'll only do to the extent that maybe befits them or has an intention or has that best benefits them. But going forward, I look at this appointment in a way that as young people within the country, we need to organize ourselves better. We don't need to divide ourselves and create some clusters in that these young people, they cannot interact with another category of young people. We need to unite. Okay,
but when you say organize ourselves better, just create for us a picture of how we need to organize ourselves better.
Let me give you
as we lobby for this appointment.
A better scenario.
Yeah.
When you go to the current parliament, there are so many young people, young MPs, young elected yes. into power.
Yes.
These young people went into their position through a political party.
And some of these young people got some of these positions because they're so active in university unions.
Yeah, in university unions. Yeah. Even in from wherever they come from.
Yeah.
They have been able to organize their fellow young people. But it's a matter of peer-to-peer,
Can we say influence?
Influence, sort of, or bringing up each other.
Okay.
If we unite, because these people, when they get into those positions, they have a way of organizing themselves. But at some extent, they need to look back, go back to these political parties. Do you know political parties also have youth organizations, which tend not to be active at some point, but active when they are required to be active.
Yeah.
So this notion has to change. If we have people who are drafting our policies, if we have people who went through these institutions of democracy, how do they come back and reorganize the young people within their institutions so that even when we get to the election period, it will be more of what values, what issues are these leaders bringing to us other than how much are they giving us as tokens or as handouts.
Okay.
If we're able to organize our youth organization, even from the political parties level, and more so, you know, we talked of the goodwill is there from the presidency to even the institutions that are mandated to handle issues of the young people. Registrar of political parties, they even, nowadays, you know, they fund political parties some money. They even have a category where they are giving specific funds for special programs, for special groups. These special groups, youths are included. So if these politicians, let's say our honorable members, young honorable members are able to retract back, try to organize young people through those who are in political parties, through their political organization. To some extent, there'll be a ripple effect. This will extend even to the other young people who are not yet in political parties.
Yeah.
Because not every young person is in a political party. This, by engaging them and having this ripple effect going backwards even to how at what time we start our politics and at what level we introduce our young people into politics, this will redefine our political space.
Okay. But now you, as a young person, you as a youth in this nation, you've been placed in such a critical position within a Jubilee party. So what are you actually doing as, let me not ask as a part, of course you represent the Jubilee party, but as a person who's been put in that office that's looking at the welfare of the young people, what are you actually doing, you as an individual in that position, to ensure that matters affecting young people is addressed when it comes to, one, appointments, when it comes to, two, nomination to probably to the National Assembly?
You know, I look at this way. The appointing authority is not necessarily the party where I sit in. And by the fact that I sit in the party that even sponsors the current president and the deputy president, amongst ourselves, we coordinate our issues. We have our youth caucuses, we have our youth meetings within, and we are even, because what we are currently doing as a party, we are trying to see, yes, we had an election. And maybe let me take you back a little bit. This is my opinion that we need also to lobby through our leadership to see how better they can organize ourselves. You know, Jubilee came into existence as a process of a merger. Yeah. We merged the mother party. But I think to some extent, because of we were heading into an election, we didn't had time maybe to also see the youth organizations from this party. How are we going to merge them, or how are we going to also organize them so that they continue with whatever the advocacy that they were doing, and also lobbying for this particular position. But as a party, there is a platform for young men. Young men within the party, we have different platform where we meet. We try to set our agenda, because currently we are also in the process of, you know, as a nation we have the Big Four agenda, but us as young people within the party, we also in the process of trying to see how do we set our own agenda? What agenda are we going to set, to draft, so that going forward for the next 5 years, we lobby through our members of parliament, through even our political leadership within the party, to see how best we can be represented within this very government. Okay. Yes.
So now you have some of these programs. So where do you take these programs? Is it across all the 47 counties to the grassroots level? And when I talk about the grassroots level, is uko ndani mashinani, we in Kiswahili is yani ushago, like in a Sheng word, like uko ndani mashinani, where the youngest person cannot be reached. Are you taking those programs there, and how effective have the programs been?
Currently, we've not rolled it down to, we are still at the drafting strategy level. You know, it is always good you come up with a strategy before you hit the ground, or you will hit the ground and realize whatever you are doing is useless. So at the moment, we are still at the strategy position point. We have some key young people within the party who also serve at the secretariat, who are going through a program. It's called a Program for Young Politicians in Africa. These young people, which I'm part of it, we are trying to benchmark our party with other major political parties within East Africa. We are just trying to see what good is it that the CCM in Tanzania or the FDC in Uganda. Recently we had a meeting, we had even a caucus with all these other political parties across from Uganda and Tanzania. We are trying to benchmark and see what is it that these parties are doing that we can borrow. We can even borrow, so that we create structures down to the level that will have an impact to the society. Okay. You know, the very purpose that these parties were created were people fought for multi-party democracy. And us, from where we are enjoying this multi-party democracy, and given such a good opportunity, we need also to make sure that it has an impact to the people, to the very person who even doesn't know much about maybe what happens to the very basic things that mean to a common person. A common person will worry not about maybe major infrastructure, but they'll worry about what they are going to eat for that particular day, or how they are going to educate their children, how they are going to ensure that their homestead have water, how they are going to maybe ensure that they have proper health care facilities within their own region.
Yeah.
And I think to some extent, as even young and even political parties, devolution is quite a good thing that we also need to implement in our own youth organizations within our parties.
Okay. Now let's move now from there. We cross over to, it will take us back to a bit of some of what we had talking about earlier, employment. There's the youth fund. Do you think the youth in this country are taking advantage of this youth fund? Because I mean, all of us, when you go to school, you're thinking of an 8 to 5 job.
Yes, true.
A CEO somewhere, a manager somewhere, a director somewhere, even if you're not a director. But at the end of the day, you have something that pays your bills. Do you think, just apart from the youth, you know, you've left university, now you're looking for a job. Do you think young people are just glued into an 8 to 5 job? And if not, are they taking advantage of the youth fund that the government has set aside?
Let me, first I'll start by, let me ridicule our education system that we went through, the 8-for-4, and it's good that we've had initiatives that we are rolling out a new system.
Yeah.
But you see, the content and the design and the structure of the current education system has put it in such a way that after your nursery school, you go to high school, you finish high school. During all this time, do you know, when I was going to school, maybe you went to a different school, but at no particular point, there was emphasis on how you can start your business, grow it, develop it, employ, be this employer. These are skills that people tend to acquire maybe as a second thought. Yeah. Every person go to school so that they get a white-collar job, but this notion has to change. And also, I also look at this fund that was created. It was for good intention, but the target group has to be relooked into. Recently, we were being told of young people cannot access these funds because they have been listed in CRB and there was a waiver lift on the same. So the uptake has not been good.
But is it because being listed in CRB, it clearly means you're not able to pay, you've not paid your loan somewhere.
You've not paid your loan.
And of course, it's because of the economy. Because people, you might borrow money, you're starting something, it didn't work out and everything. So is it just because of that? Or we're not, we're not like focused enough as young people to take this fund?
Not exactly, but there is diversity in every young person. There's those youthful persons who are geared or they are focused to ensure that they are into business. I know I have so many of my friends the same age, but they are purely into business. And we also have those ones that needs to be taken to be capacity built to a certain level for them to be able to access such things. And also in terms of this fund, you also look at how we are doing, how we are capacity building people, what information has the institution been able to pass it through to the people to see how best they can utilize this fund and even repay and have capacity to repay. For some time I was doing a program called Social Entrepreneurship Africa, where we were trying to teach young people on how they can come up with enterprise, not only enterprise for them to gain or become wealthy, but to solve problems into society. You could clearly see young people have a will and have all good intentions to develop themselves and to enjoy these particular resources that have been put in place. But the will, you may compare it to the software, as in the young people are willing, but the ability and the...
is what they lack.
Is what they lack. So to some extent, I think the organization need to do more. Let them reach out, even through the numerous youth organizations that
Okay.
we have in the country,
Okay.
and try to empower young people, let them push information as far as possible, so that people see how best they can utilize this fund.
Okay. And you know, as you talk about young people utilizing this fund, some of them, of course, as you've mentioned, they can't access these funds because they have a loan probably with a bank or a SACCO, so they've been listed down as probably defaulters. People are not able
Or
to.
maybe they got a loan so that they pay their education.
Yeah, yeah. But then another question that has been there is that even you're very clean, like you don't have a loan, you've not been blacklisted as a defaulter, but just accessing this loan is really, really hard for some people. Hence the concern that in case you know someone somewhere, you can be pushed for. You know, it's a society of, you know, push for me, I get it.
No, I think we call the way we are bringing up the current generation, the millennials. I think there is a big problem. I can't purport to speak for that organization, but as a young person, I believe we need to strive further. You know, when you've been brought up, always we talk of a generation where we always want everything to be done for us. I have my younger brothers and sisters, and the way I look at how they run their things, it's very different from
How you do
how we
yours.
used to do it. Because I remember those days you used to hustle for yourself. Every other thing, when you're in school, you had to make sure that you know where your CDF office is if you want to get bursary. You know where a higher education loan board is located. But nowadays, somebody will tell you, why don't you do it for me? Do you have somebody there to
You can
call?
push it for me.
Who can push it?
Yeah.
Which is, I look at it as the world is changing. And there are so many other ways that we can build these networks. Networks are good. It's not a matter of even pushing, but it's a matter of how best can you network yourself to make sure that you even access this information real time. Nowadays, we have quite a number of social media platforms where people interact with organizations that are meant to uplift them. So if we are able to use these platforms well, the question of push for me, ask somebody to push for me, because I want to urge all young people to go and try it. Try it and see to what level it will go to.
At least it will be, I tried, I did my part. Yeah.
I remember I worked for an organization where we were also funding young people to do advocacy on a certain issue. And when maybe you sit down to evaluate the proposals that you've received, you now start working on which among the worst, which is the best worst.
Among the worst, which is the best worst.
Which is the
Clearly
best
this person
worst.
didn't do
Yes.
their homework well.
Yeah, so you tend to maybe receive. I think we, as young people, we need to push out information as much as possible.
Okay.
Let us, the enlightened young people, let us reach out to the other guy, to the other people. We should even go to the grassroots level and try to see how our young people are faring on.
Okay. So as much as we're seeing how our young people are faring on, and I think some young people in this country now feel like corruption is the way to go because of the corruption scandals that have affected some of the institutions that have been set up by the government to fight for the rights of the youth and to ensure that the youth are empowered. Look at what is happening at the NYS. This is the second scandal, and it's bigger than the first NYS scandal. And young people are like, okay, even some of the people who've been arrested are the youth. So you're thinking, then this is the way to go.
Do you know, on the corruption issue, it is quite saddening what is happening, the reports that we are receiving. And to some extent, as a young person, it pains me a lot. But I look at it this way. Our upbringing currently is very poor. As a leader, let's say, as a young person, I redefine corruption in this manner. If you, as a person, you want to wake up late and expect to be given priority on our traffic road, that is pure corruption. If whatever you use in your house, let's say if you, in your house, when you are taking tea, you only use one spoon of sugar, then
You
in
go to
a
a public
restaurant, you go
place,
to a
you take
public
like
place, you
3.
take like 3. That is how we've condoned this corruption in such a way that where we are, we need a proper intervention. And I like the fact that there is goodwill, there is good intention to fight corruption. And you can even see the discussion that we currently have in institutions that are mandated to oversee any other organization. There is so much goodwill to fight corruption. And also I look at it this way. If today we don't empower our young people, they will realize that their life is almost, it's wasted when they get to 40. Now they become, they get into some hurry or panic mode. That is where, and depending on how you've been brought up, you know, most of us, we've been brought up in Christian organization,
but
institutions.
aren't everyone who is involved in this corruption brought up in a Christian family?
No, you know, values in life, it is not something that is like you are formatted and they are input, they are installed inside you. It is something that you grow in it with time. There are things that as a person I can't do because of how I've been brought up.
Okay.
I'm trying to see how sanity can be reinstalled in all our organization. In wherever you do, you try to see how best you can do it to the interest of a common person. But when it gets to that level where, you know, corruption is a form of selfish interest among a few. Because you look at it, the stories that we've been hearing, I'm hoping the court will clear the issues so that we have, you know, I don't want to speculate a lot.
But we are not even, okay, yes, Marvin, we don't want to speculate a lot, and it's even legally, it's not right for us to discuss a matter that's in court. But here you're talking about a young person being empowered. Yes, you've empowered me as a young person, but when I sit in this country, I get frustrated. Day in, day out, you wake up and you're like, millions lost. Within a span of a minute, millions lost. And these funds are supposed to empower me. Like, okay, I've already been empowered. But these funds are supposed to help another youth who's not even able to pay money for school fees, who's not even able to get employment. Because look at NYS. It is supposed to be an institution that empowers the youth with skills. But then, if funds that are meant to empower me and another person with skills, things are not working well, then you ask yourself as a young person, where are we headed to as a country? Where are we headed to?
True. Looking at how things are handled, because all these things are meant to benefit us as young people. But the trend in which we are receiving scandal issues and highlights, and it's wanting. I agree with you. No, something has to be done. And it's good. We need to take, every person has to take an individual stand. Because in fighting corruption, and another thing that I look at it is, how do we also ensure that we have proper systems and structures in these organizations and institutions? Because there's how human beings are built. Maybe somebody may say we are selfish by nature or we are greedy by nature. But these are things that can easily be worked on.
Yeah.
If an individual cannot change, then the question that begs is, how do we ensure that structures and systems are put in place?
But even
how do we
okay.
even engage professionals? You know, professionals, they are guided by, they have their own professional bodies. I'm a member of one professional body's Institute of Certified Public Accountants. And you look at the code of ethics that we sign and agree on, and even the restrictions that you are told while working or doing your duties, they are clearly defined. As in, there need to be a clear repercussion of some of these things that people do. So that it's so clear that if you misuse funds that were meant for this particular purpose, you should be dealt with according to the law.
Okay.
And let the law take its due course, and let us see people refrain from doing things that will endanger our society and our, yes.
But as you do that, isn't it not saddening to you, Marvin, that even as you lead the youth, that some of these people who are involved in corruption, the saddest thing also is that even the young people are being arraigned in court because of corruption. Like, look at the NYS scandal, the second scandal. Young people are also there, they've been mentioned and arraigned in court. But of concern is how some of these suspects are using young people to hold protests. And we are the same people who, when corruption happens, we raise concern, social media, streets demonstrating. Then the next day, you're seeing the same, look at like what happened at NYS. It's young people who are brought together, went in were in the streets demonstrating, oh, release this person, very innocent. And we are the same people again who are saying corruption is killing the nation.
Yeah, true. When you look at corruption, true, it's killing the nation. I agree with you. But the extent to which young people have been reduced not to even fight this corruption. At times I look at the NYS issue and try to look at what is the bigger picture around it other than a few wrought within the system. Because when you look at it, it is not something that is that was perpetrated by so many people. You know, it can be narrowed down. So since it can be narrowed down, looking at the bigger picture, what the intention was. And I think to some extent I say, as a nation we need leaders, not, we normally call them on social media tenderpreneurs. We need leaders who have the interest of the people at heart. If we can transform to that level where we have a leadership that is people-oriented and has interest of the people, you'll see even these institutions will follow suit. There has to be something to trigger sanity into our society. And I like the current initiative that have been put in place to see how best we can sanitize some of these institutions that were actually meant to reach out to the young people. Somebody once said that when you look at money for the old, we are not seeing any scandal there. When you look at these other funds that are not young people oriented, there are no scandals. But how comes that us as the young people, our platform where we are, we see so much happening, coming up?
Probably, Marvin, I think it's because people look at the youth funds meant for the youth as a cash cow. Because, you know, there's so many programs running. Because you can't just do one program like for 5 years when you're in leadership and you expect this program to transform lives. So you definitely have to start different programs that will, maybe if one is handling maybe skills like NYS, you do that. If one is handling in terms of employment, you do that. And so people look at, you know, youth projects as cash cow. And so that is why even so many people want to get into the youth projects.
True. But I also look at it, you know, at times change comes, and at times change comes very fast. NYS came, but it came very fast. To some extent, currently you'll hear discussions on maybe the Constitution. The Constitution, its time had come, and we passed it as a nation. Implementation calls upon rechecking on maybe the policy issues or the bill issues. And you've seen, you know, the core mandate of our leaders and our members of parliament, it is to legislate on a number of issues that affects the very operations of how we run our things in the country. So if at all, if we have good policy reviews, we need also to sit down and check, okay, we had this, there was a good intention maybe to have this particular fund to reach out to the young people. Now, after that, how are we going also to check on how the implementation is going on. Let us seal the loopholes as the operation goes on. Like, for example, NYS, it's good that these issues have come up. Now, it is time that as a nation we need to sit down and see what system, what structures, how do we even review, how do we seal, reduce such leakages of our money and loopholes. And you know, at times you can't seal a loophole when there is no leakage through that loophole. It's once you see the leakage,
then you want to seal the loophole.
That is when you come and seal. So these things are happening for the better, and I think as a nation we are going far. Let these things come out now, so that even when we are talking of our development agenda, we can clearly see, okay, this is an issue. Sugar importation is an issue. How do we, to me, it gives me hope, because it shows our nation is growing.
Okay. Okay. And lastly, as we finish, Marvin, being a leader of the youth, handling youth affairs at Jubilee Party, being a member of the Secretariat, and it is, of course, the Jubilee Party that is the ruling party in Kenya right now as we speak. How can you rate your party when it comes to matters of youth affairs in this nation?
We are trying. I don't know, should I give it a percentage?
Between a scale, okay, let's say a scale, between a scale of 1 to 10, Marvin, how can you rate, you know, Jubilee when it comes to youth affairs in this country? And if you give it, you're giving it a?
I'll give it above average.
Above average.
6. We still have a lot to do. We still have to bring young people together. Let every person have a voice. That is why democracy, that the people earlier on fought for it. It's a matter of, yes, we are trying. And you even see current appointments we've had young people coming in, but it's not enough. We need still to lobby further. We lobby more, see young people, qualified young people come into position to uplift the other young people in the society.
And what do you think has been a major challenge for the party to ensure that youth agenda is driven forward to its success?
One reason that I'll attribute to that is our political space generally as a nation. You know, and it's a culture that I think as a young people I need to see how best we can work against this culture. We've always had political parties being more vocative and more loud during election period, but immediately after election, you see, we tend to retreat back. Now we start lobbying for positions.
Is it because people view the youth as gullible? Because when you hear politicians speaking during campaigns, they say, we'll do this for the young people, you're unemployed, and this and this. When they get into office, the tone goes down, like you never promised anything.
True. I agree with you. The perception, and you know, we need to rework, as young people, we need to rework on that perception, so that when our elders see us, they see us as potential future leaders. They see us as very key part of this society. They see us as a solution to the problem within our society. It's a matter of us as young people, we need to work on that perception. So that we are perceived. But it's true, for quite a long time we've had young people being the noisemakers in rallies. And when you come to even policy issues, even cabinet issues, even in cabinet position, we implement the policies that have been created, but we don't actually be the key drivers, and we don't set the policies for the nation. Okay.
We've run out of time, Marvin. Your camera is down on my right, the one that's facing you directly. Just in a minute, because we've run out of time. My producer is telling me we've run out of time. Just in a minute, kindly, your message to the young people outside there as you wind up.
My message to every young people in our nation is we need to stand up. We need to fill up our space that has been created for us. Let us reach out to our leaders. Let us advocate and lobby for what is rightful ours. Let us ensure that the implementation of the Constitution, especially Article 55 that talks of empowerment of our young people, is implemented to the core. Let us also work with leaders that we elected into position to see how best we can uplift our position. And going forward, I want to call young people also to join political parties and use the space to advocate for their issues, and also ensure that matters of young people are taken into account and are seriously taken into consideration, because the future of this country will entirely depend on how best the current generation is empowered and put in place and in position to see that we lay down the infrastructure for the future generation.
Thank you so much, Marvin. Those are deep words. Those are deep words. The future of this country depends on how empowered young people position themselves in this nation. Those are the parting shots from Marvin, who is a member of the Secretariat, the Jubilee Party Secretariat, and also he is the Youth National Leader at Jubilee Party. Thank you so much for joining us, Marvin, this morning here on Channel 1. Good morning, Kenya. My name is Brenda, and thanks to everyone who has made this morning production a success. As I always say, it is not a one-man show, it is a teamwork. And enjoy the rest of your viewing. God bless you. And we meet tomorrow, being a Thursday. It's Matters Entertainment Thursday. Enjoy the rest of your viewing. See you tomorrow.
Okay, thank you, Brenda.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.